On this episode of Athletic Training Chat, we have Dr. Natasha Denmark, who is an educator at a JUCO level, plus also does a lot of education in corporate healthcare and doing that on a large scale within a large corporation, which we talk about in this episode. Both very unique aspects of athletic training and where our skills and our expertise and our education can take us in terms of our roles and providing information to not only students but also within just a larger corporate world. So tons to take away. She also shares an extremely impactful story about her experience with diversity, equity, and inclusion, and just things she has gone through in her life. So we're grateful to her for having shared that. As always, we are powered by Mueller Sports Medicine. We want to thank them for their continued support of not only us, but the profession. Always give them a consideration for your healthcare needs. They've got a lot of stuff that they're working on, always trying to come out with something new and improved to help both the patients that we support and that they support. So check them out. Their new Revive is fantastic, very competitive in terms of price. So definitely thank you and check out to Mueller Sports Medicine. Without further ado, please enjoy this episode. On this episode of Athletic Training Chat, we have Dr. Natasha Denmark, who we are talking about kind of a wide variety of topics. Actually, we connected because we put out a New Year's resolution. You want to be on a podcast, and Natasha responded in some form, and so we reached out and came up with some topics to talk about and looking at athletic training education, but kind of in a different venue of that, which will be very interesting. I'm looking forward to hear about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and we'll get into that. And then also corporate healthcare education at what sounds to be a not small organization that she works with. So we will kind of a interesting array of topics, but some that'll be very interesting, I'm sure. But before we get into that, just wanted to turn it over to you to kind of fill in a little bit of your background, how you got to where you are, and then we'll kind of jump into all the topics.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you for having me. I think you did a great job with like everywhere that I've been. I do want to add, I'm also a mom, which is a huge part of my life. I have two little ones. I have a 3.5-year old and an 8-month old, and
Oh, wow.
they, yeah, they run my world. So I feel like all of these things is like everything that I worked hard for, right? My degrees, where I work, all of that. But my I think number one job is being a mom, which is why I work in corporate healthcare education and one of the reasons.
Sure.
So yeah, I think number one being a mom to them, which has been awesome. But yeah, you know I've had a lot of different experiences and worked in a lot of different areas within athletic training, and I think now working as an educator at the JUCO level has been really, it like brought me back to square one because I started at a community college or a JUCO.
Okay.
So it's back to square one for me. And then working in the corporate world has certainly been interesting, but I feel like it's a field, and we'll talk more about this, but I feel like it's a field that I would love to like pull more athletic trainers into. So excited.
I'm definitely curious to hear about just because it's a whole different take on everything and just how the all the skills apply. If you're okay with it, just kind of to start with that, as you referenced the athletic training education and the JUCO level and how you
Mhm.
started out at a community college. And if you don't mind, just kind of what does that wholly look like? Because as I kind of put in the questions, I'm sure they're not CAATE approved programs, but you
Yeah.
know, teaching athletic training slash sports medicine, or if you could elaborate what that is, please.
Yeah, so there's a lot of community colleges actually, I think, around the country, but in California, there's a few. So we have what's called a sports medicine AS, so Associate of Science degree.
Okay.
And once the students are done, they have two kind of directions they can go. They can have a certificate in sports medicine or the AS degree in sports medicine. Usually they get both. Sometimes they use it actually to work at physical therapy clinics as aides.
Okay.
So they can use the certificate to start there. But our goal is to get them through their bachelor's degree and into CAATE programs. So obviously, before we went into the master's level degree, it was just a pipeline. So I would work with my students. We would get them the core classes and the experience to apply to CAATE approved bachelor's programs,
Sure.
and they would go there, become athletic trainers, and so on. Now, I have revised a lot of my education because we have a whole course, which is the internship course, where we talk about, okay, where, what are the next steps? Where do you go from here? So now, once they complete this degree, we talk a lot about, either going into a specific science like anatomy, physiology,
Mhm.
biology, and then into athletic training, or continuing on the kinesiology route because our program is through the kinesiology degree essentially. So continuing the kinesiology route, taking kinesiology classes, and then applying to the master's level athletic training programs. So it's more of a pipeline. Some of them
Sure.
do have aspirations to work anywhere in sports medicine, whether it's physical therapy, orthopedics, or if it's some of them do want to become medical physician, doctors, whatever their titles are. So um, they have a lot of aspirations, but a lot of them are athletes. So like half of my classes are always athletes that play at the JUCO. So
Sure.
they have either gotten hurt or they have seen someone get hurt, and now they're like, oh, athletic training. This sounds cool because we've been hurt. Um, the interesting part, I think, also is because we're in California, and California is, we're the only non-regulated state. And so it makes things a little bit harder. Like I try to push them to, go outside of California, go maybe research programs somewhere else, try to get that experience. But that being said, a lot of the students are from low income backgrounds. They have to stay close to their families, things like that. So I try to also meet with them individually to like plan out a course of action, especially if they're going all the way through to getting this associate of science degree in sports medicine. Like, where can you go? What can you
Hmm.
do? What is your best bet? And we've done a lot with also Amazon. Like, they have a fellowship that you can do for industrial athletic training. So
Okay.
um, yeah, I try to just like push them in anyway, but it's a pipeline. It's a pipeline
Sure.
from starting at the beginning of your education and getting through and becoming an athletic trainer. I've also, this is the last thing I'll say about this,
All
I've
right.
also
Good.
had a few students who they have finished their bachelor's degree and now they're applying to athletic training programs. But a lot of master's level athletic training programs still require you to have taken an intro to athletic training class or some sort of like athletic training informational class
Sure.
at either your bachelor's level or community college. So a lot of them come back and take my class as they're applying to these programs. So I've done a lot of like letters of recommendation
Sure.
for master's level programs, things like that, to get them there.
That's awesome that you've kind of orchestrated and constructed all of that to give those options and make it as seamless as possible for the person. And, as you referenced with everything going on with the switch to the masters, like that, those pipelines are so essential to keep finding people that are interested in it and give them
Mhm.
the least amount of resistance to get there. So
Yeah,
appreciate the
exactly.
work you're doing there.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and hopefully it's, they'll see, like I try to bring examples from like my life. I have a lot of like, we talked about connecting through Twitter.
Hmm.
My introduction to kinesiology, or to sorry, to athletic training class, I always have guest speakers. And so I try to get people from different, settings to come in and talk to them. So that's been really great because they can kind of see like, okay, I'm not like just doing this. I can do a lot of different things, which is, I think, like what I was stuck on when I was going through the different, through my program. Like,
Yeah.
I have to work here,
Yeah.
and now it's like so much more than just one setting or two different settings or whatever it is.
Yes, my career path has taken me nowhere where I thought it would have when I was in my undergraduate program. I literally haven't done what I thought I was going to do in my undergrad. That hasn't come through, and that's okay. But yes, I understand that
Right.
wholly.
But you're doing
Kind of.
big things.
Oh, go ahead. Say
I
that
was
again.
just saying, but you're doing big things, so that's
Yeah,
awesome.
we'll use big in a relative and a quote term. Um, Very much shifting gears, but just had pulled it out of your Twitter bio. Is you're focusing on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Your dissertation work on that. Um, Multiple questions on this, but I just want to start with your definition or the definition of diversity, equity, and inclusion from the work you've done and the communities that you are a part of and work in.
Yeah. So, I mean, to me, I think I've heard a lot of definitions specifically on your podcast, but also, throughout Twitter. And I feel like I pull from all of those.
Sure.
Um, for me, it's basically giving the access to include everyone that, either has been marginalized or is continued to be marginalized, giving access, being able to have that same playing level field, whatever that can take, because sometimes we have resources that someone else may not have. So having access to all of those resources, being able to serve every single community, whether it's a community that's well known, not well known, giving everyone the same exact resources so we can all, just for example, get to that master's level
Mhm.
athletic training program, right? Because some of us will be able to get there, some of us will not. And just basically recognizing all groups. And for me, the biggest part is access, having that ability to provide access to just anybody, no matter their religion, race, orientation, and whatever it is that may be a potential barrier, to break that so we can all have the same opportunity to get wherever our goals or wherever we want to get to.
So you kind of potentially already answered this, but I just wanted to ask it more specifically, on in your work, and you said a lot of things about access, just kind of your thoughts on equality versus equity and what the differences are, because I think that gets thrown around a lot too. And I think anytime there's somebody with a perspective on it, it's good to see that, just to see if that helps register with anybody else.
Yeah. So I feel like equality, it's a word that I want to say they almost equal the same thing, but obviously
Sure.
they don't. And equity is more of creating equality, I would say. So what I mean by that
Yep.
is, um, you know, we can all say like, oh, you and I have the same equality. It doesn't matter. But in order to get somewhere, I maybe have to work a little bit harder, or you, whatever, whichever way we want to
Yep.
go. But I'd have to work a little bit harder because I come from a different background than you. And so equity comes in to where you're given those resources, or you get those extra resources to then be on that equal playing field with someone else. So I think it's just that extra step to creating equality. So we may not all have the same socioeconomic levels, we may not all have the same like just the way people view us, whether it's male versus female, race, whatever it may be, orientation. Someone may come in and not see you on the same in the same way that they'd see someone else because they haven't seen that. So just getting there. And my specific work that I did was focused on cultural humility.
Okay.
And a lot of that is, you know, recognizing the fact that we don't know everything and that's okay. So being able to come out and say, you know what, I will not say that I know how to be in your shoes because I've never been in your shoes. But now that I see who you are and what you represent, I can go back and educate myself and get to that point to where I know where you're coming from. I understand. I'm actively listening to everything that you're saying to be able to then implement it in my practice, in my life, in whatever. So it's essentially realizing and being aware that I'm going to run into people, I'm going to meet others that are different than me that I won't know about, but I'm open and willing to learn about it and will actively do so.
Definitely. I think I saw somewhere or somebody had said it like the best example they had for equality versus equity is like we both need a pair of shoes. I wear a size 14, and so they just bought 2 pairs of size 14 shoes, which works great for me, but probably wouldn't work so well for you because 14 is like huge shoe size. Uh, but it would
I would
be
need
that
to
would
cut it in more than half.
yeah, so that would be the equality. Well, you both got a
Yeah.
pair of shoes, but then the
Yeah.
equity is actually giving you what you needed in order to then be able to bring up to it. And like, I think what you just, everything you said with access
Yeah.
and understanding that um,
I love
is
that.
huge. Yeah, it was a good one. I was like, that I fully understand that one there. Um, so you mentioned, the cultural humility in your work there, but what else kind of drew you to, and as I'm using quote per your Twitter bio, an equity warrior, and just kind of excuse me, what does that look like for you? How do you implement that into your life, and really help try and push that forward?
Yeah, so it's to me it's very personal. So I've made a couple of like Twitter posts about it, but I don't like it's not, I think, like, oh, I'm not like out there, I don't know, recording my life story. But
Sure.
I'm an immigrant and I came to the US on a religious asylum when I was 6 with my parents. um I was born in Belarus, and like this will be dating myself, but we came to the US right as the Kremlin wall was falling. So essentially, communism was still there when I lived there. When we came here, communism was essentially broken down, but you know, we know who's in charge over there. So nothing's like really happened or broken down. But we came here on a religious asylum. And what that means is we didn't come, like, it wasn't like, hey, hop on a plane and come to the US. It took us about a year to get here. So we were in different like refugee places, in Austria, in Italy. So in Austria we were there for 3 months. In Italy we were there for just over 6 months. And then we got to New Jersey. So my first US state was New Jersey, the lovely Garden State. And we lived there in Newark, New Jersey. So we lived in the projects when we did get there, and it was very like segregated. So like in the projects, we had, one building, it was like 5 buildings. One building was the Polish immigrants, the other building was the Russian Jewish refugees like us, the other building was the African American people, the other building was the Puerto Rican immigrants. So it was just like this big meshing pool of everybody living in this housing. And so I feel like most of my life, or most of my like childhood growing up, we were like, I was trying to repress all of that because it was like assimilate, assimilate, assimilate. And once I started doing my grad work, in my master's program and especially my doctoral studies, it was a lot of like, well, what can I bring to the table? Like, what do I know, or what have I experienced that I can, what can I focus on my dissertation on? What can I focus my studies on? And I just kept like relearning about myself and like where my family came from, and a lot like even before us coming to the US, like my grandparents were in the Holocaust. And, just like a lot of those different things that I don't want to say like I completely repressed, but at the same time, like I was so busy on trying to fit in and be what everyone else was or like everyone else that I didn't really focus on why I'm even like what I'm doing, why I'm here. So a lot of it was relearning about myself. And then with that, I started focusing on, okay, how can I now be an advocate, a sponsor, and an ally? And the reason I say that is because obviously I'm white. So I have that white privilege all over the place where, I worked really hard on assimilating. So I don't have an accent. um if you see me on the street or wherever, it's like cool. And especially now, so my Denmark is my name by marriage. So my Russian my original name is Natasha Drukarova. So I don't introduce myself as that to people. It's Natasha Denmark, so everyone's like, okay, cool.
That's kind of what I was asking at the beginning because I did
Yeah.
not want to butcher that. So I appreciate you saying it now and in the correct way.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Right now, yeah, I just say Denmark. Much easier, much simpler. Because yeah, like my whole life. And I did not even have the A on Drukarova. I did not have the A on it until I became a naturalized citizen at 17. So it was just Drukarov with a V at the end. And then when you become a citizen, they look at all of your paperwork, obviously, like your birth certificate, and they're like, what happened to your A? And I'm like, well, my mom dropped her A. And so I was like, I thought I could drop it. And they're like, no, only adults. Like I was under 18. So they're like, only adults can drop it. And I was like, great, whatever. Give me back that A, which I like, if I would have known like I'm not even going to like go to the nicknames that I was called growing up. Um, but like the American way of saying Drukarov is Drukarov. So you can imagine like where those different names and things like that went. So yeah, so relearning about myself, relearning who I am. But again, I present as white, I am white. And therefore, my journey is something that I can use as empathy, as knowing like, okay, where you're coming from. We didn't have, money. Like I had to work since I was technically 15 and could get a permit from school. But before that, I worked, like under the table jobs for my
Sure,
dad's company, different things like that.
sure.
Um, so I can use all of that to basically, help others get to where they need to get. And so we hear a lot of, reference to ally. And so to me, ally is just like someone who's there to support you. And I love that word. I'm here to support everyone. But I think the two other important words is advocate and sponsor. And advocate, I think I've heard others talk on your podcast before about advocating. So, if there's, something happening or something in your realm that you can talk about with like advocating for salaries, advocating for hiring, better hiring practices, like really focusing on hiring people of color, people of different backgrounds, orientations, whatever. So advocating in that sense. And then sponsoring is like really putting someone up front. So recommending someone for positions. If you know someone, a person of color, of a different background, orientation, sponsoring for that person to get into a specific either field or get into a specific job or get a specific salary, because you either know that they don't make the same as other people, or that they need that, to basically get somewhere. So I think, and they can all get there by themselves. But for me, I'm always that person that's like, okay, yes, I will back you up in here. I will, whatever you need to do. Or if someone asks me for my opinion and I know at my current job, that's a lot of, like I'm in a higher role. So a lot of times we have leadership meetings where we're talking about, okay, who can we promote? So I'm always the sponsor for whoever I feel like hasn't been given the, right opportunity because of whatever, hasn't been seen because of whatever. So yeah, so again, it's very personal to me. And I try to just take my privilege and be that sponsor, advocate, and ally wherever I can be.
Well, first, thank you for sharing all of that story. I really appreciate you sharing that, and I just really goes to show like you don't know what people have been through or where they're coming from because I'm sure from the outside you know just looking at everything we have from here, you're working for a Fortune 10 company, obviously doing pretty good, and like you know from there, and you kind of look at all that, and you would have never known. So I think it's just another important reminder that we don't know what we don't know about people, and
Mhm.
so
Exactly.
check judgment before you before you get too far into it.
Right.
Um, Before we kind of talk more about that kind of corporate healthcare thing, I didn't want to just kind of brush over any of the DEI stuff. Is there
Yeah.
anything else that you kind of wanted to touch on there that we didn't, that you feel is important?
Um, I mean, I appreciate you advocating for it and having different guests on. And I just think that, it's not, I like sometimes I hear people say, like, oh, it's a phase, it'll pass. I don't think it's a phase and I don't think it'll pass. And I think that it's important that we keep these conversations going. And, all of the research that's coming out by our fellow Twitter versus AT Twitter people, I think it's important to take all of those like research, all of that research, all of those dissertations, and really emphasize them and really look into the different studies that people are putting out and just keep talking about it. So thank you for that. And then, yeah, just anytime, anybody else that's watching, listening, keep it going. Keep keep those conversations going.
Totally agree. So shifting, what is your role, and what does the work in corporate healthcare education look like?
Yeah. So now I'm in leadership. So my role has changed a little bit. When I first started, essentially I was a trainer of medical education, and that's for pharmacists, nurses, physicians, anybody that works. So I work for United Healthcare. I can put it out there. That's fine. United Healthcare, one of the biggest healthcare companies, insurance companies, one of, um, not everybody's favorite company to hear talk about. Um, but essentially, I started out as a trainer, and in order to get into this position, a lot of the times they ask you to have the background. So they ask you to, be a registered nurse, or be a physician, or be a pharmacist, or be a pharmacy tech, or be a medical biller, whatever area you're going to go into. And I had an associate who helped me get the job. And so, I told them, like, hey, I'm a healthcare professional. I've worked in healthcare for the last like 10 plus years. I just don't have the title of a nurse. I don't have a title of a physical therapist or a pharmacist. It's a little bit different. So she basically had me write out everything that I've done. And I did that. And so when I went into the interviews, I told them, hey, I'm nationally certified. I was licensed in Arizona when I was, working there. So there's, these different things. Here's what athletic training is. Here's, what we know, what we do, and so on. So I got the job based on that. And then you go in and you help all of the, same thing with our continuing education units. Essentially, it's continuing education for these employees for United Healthcare. Um,
Awesome.
now I'm just in a role where I do project management. So I have a bunch of trainers in the position that I was at, and I give them work.
Fair. Um, maybe that part doesn't totally correlate to this next
Yeah.
question, but there might be a way to do it. How has your background in working as an athletic trainer, being in the profession, been an advantage in this role or the
Yeah.
roles that you've had? Yeah, however you want to frame it up.
Right. All of it. I think it's huge. I think athletic training, I mean, essentially everything. I think just even now, like I actually had my review earlier this week for my position, and one of the comments that a lot of people like, we have 360 reviews, so other people give
Hmm.
comments about you. So one of the comments that I had that like my boss put into my review was, like able to relate to others, able to make them feel comfortable and work well with them. And I think for me that comes from athletic training. So even if it's
Sure.
not like the healthcare professional part, it's still, I feel like we are more down to earth than some of the other professions. And so just, being comfortable in who we are, what we do as athletic trainers has, helped me. Like I'm in this corporate world where everyone's like, "Oh, I'm so cool and I'm so great." And I'm like, "That's great. Now let's talk about this. Like let's, go here. Let's, how's your day going? How's life?" So I think just that like relaxed, even though, like we're professionals, we know everything, but
Yep.
having that like more of a relaxed attitude has helped people like get closer to me and help me accomplish all of my goals, not my work goal, but like our goals to successfully provide education to these healthcare professionals that I work with. I think that's one. Two, as a trainer, again, like I trained medical terminology, I trained on medical conditions and things like that. So it wasn't just like, oh, here's a curriculum, like now, just regurgitate what's here. Like I actually knew all of that stuff, or was able to pull from my education and pull from my experiences working at the high school D1 clinics and so on. So I think the education definitely helped, and the experience in the field helped with being able to put not only examples into my training situations, but also like, confidently state the information, because there's been a lot of trainings in the corporate world that I've been in that I'm like, oh, like this is kind of boring. Like, let me, let me just write down notes or whatever else. So trying to like really spice it up has, been fun with bringing in examples and bringing in what we do as athletic trainers.
Awesome. Just kind of to tail off of this, if somebody, as we're either listening to this, you mentioned this has been a decent career change with small kids.
Hmm.
I know something similar going from a university setting to more of a clinic setting because we have a 2.5 and 7-ish month old
Oh, so
currently.
similar ages.
Yeah, yeah, very, very similar. And just seeing that if somebody were interested in trying to like break into this area of work, recommendations, ideas that you would have for them.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think there's, when you look at job postings, I would just use the keywords medical educator, educate healthcare education. So,
Hmm.
changing those words up. Anyone can reach out to me too, because I feel like, there's always people being hired. But I would also look, because I feel like we look at hospitals, clinics, things like that, look at insurance companies, look at different things, especially I know now with like at least United Healthcare, but also I know with like Blue Cross Blue Shield and a lot of other insurances, a lot of the jobs are remote. And I
Sure.
think um, I know on Facebook that I'm part of like the athletic training moms group on
Hmm.
Facebook, and a lot of the moms in that group have gone to like medical billing and coding in order to get remote jobs, which is great if for people who love that. But similar, like if you're looking for remote work, I would just mostly like change the vocabulary that you are posting. And look at different educational sites, things like that. Again, like I think that opening up our way of searching for jobs
Sure.
is going to be important. And I think like even I always tell my company, like, and it's so big and like the hiring process is so ridiculous. I always tell them, like, go to fairs at, colleges, go to these different places if you're looking for, different things. I can even present in athletic training programs, things like that, like I've tried to do that with my job too, where it's like, we go to different job fairs. There's people that represent others at the job fairs and things like that. But they also just look in like business, and they look in, again, specific to like nursing programs,
Mm-hmm.
physical therapy programs, things like that. And they skip over athletic training because they don't know what it is. So me
Sure.
coming from my world, I'm like, all right, like let's go to this athletic training program, or let's go talk to these folks. So I think it's advocating on both ends, like for me on the inside, like getting my company to go there, and then for others, when you search, just search for everything. Like don't be stuck to the areas that we kind of always look at, if that makes sense.
I think that's great advice. Anything else around that we haven't covered? We kind of covered the little gamut of questions I had for you, but anything else that we're missing that you wanted to talk about?
um I don't. I'm sorry. I'm looking through the questions
No,
too.
you're good.
No, I think we covered it all, based on those questions. Um, I know you have at the end, like for the contact stuff, but again, like if anyone has questions, I'm always there to answer them. And yeah, I think it's important to like continue to explore our horizons as athletic trainers, to have more opportunities and be recognized. Like I know we always talk about we're healthcare professionals, and that's great, but like, where else can we be recognized to get
Sure.
those jobs, or to be in position to get those jobs?
Absolutely. Ready for the athletic training chat questions?
I am.
All right. First one. Where do you see athletic training going in the next 5 to 10 years? And you can kind of set a specific example or just a much broader swath.
Yeah, I'm gonna go broad here. I think we're gonna keep expanding. I think I've I agree with others that say that the master's level is a good choice. I think it creates a little bit like more steps to climb, but at the same time, I think salary wise, recognition wise, it's going to be great. I think we're going to, in that 5 to 10 years, we are going to be in a lot more places than we are even now. So I'm excited for that. I'm excited to see where the careers grow. Um, and just again, we can't stop advocating for a lot of these things, because I feel like they're slowly happening, but in 5 to 10 years, I just can see us in many more different places than we are now.
Yep, I think there's a lot of growing pains that we are realizing with the switch that's causing some problems and the shortage. And with you got to take a little, obviously address that now, but take a little bit of the long view of, it isn't going to
Mhm.
just happen overnight. And that's okay, but it will happen.
Yeah, exactly. And I think like even um we talked about the JUCO to master's pipeline, which is, I
Yep,
feel like, a long process, but even having those programs, like collaborating with those programs, I would love to see that in the next 5 to 10 years.
for sure. Next one is what advice would you go back and give yourself as a young athletic trainer? And if you could kind of set, when that would be in your career.
Yeah, I mean, I would go back, and I like everything. I've heard this so many times and it's so true, but I think I would go back and like tell myself at probably like the math when I was a grad assistant, like tell myself at that point that there is more to athletic training than working D1 or at a college setting, which was like always my thing. And I was at ASU, Arizona State University, and I was excited and happy. And I was like, now I have this background. Now I can go and succeed, but I also wanted to move back to California with my family. And so that wasn't much of a, it was a hard, like I was looking for jobs, and I ended up taking jobs at like $15-16 an hour with a master's degree, which is insane. Like I didn't stay there long,
Right,
but
right.
just so that I can survive or whatever else. I was, I worked a lot of intramural and club sports and different things like that to try to get to where I wanted to be. And that wasn't, working out. I was really interested in industrial athletic training. And I took, like, we have a couple of companies here that at the time, like this was a long time ago, right? They did mostly per diem shifts, and they still do mostly per diem shifts, but they did per diem shifts. So I picked up some of those, and I would like tell myself to stick to it, or to like, explore outside of collegiate athletics. Because I feel like now there's just so many options, which I love sharing with my students and with anybody that's interested. But at the time, I was like, I just need a job. Like, I just need to
Hmm.
make money. I just need to, you know, do this, and that. So I burned out quickly. And that's when I was like, you know what? I need to step away, because I was working per diem jobs. I was, like that was my main income, was all these per diem jobs. And I ended up working at a college doing some like career advising, things like that. So I was working like 20 jobs, and I was tired, and I was like, I'm just going to take a step back and focus on education and like teaching and things like that. But yeah, so, you know, keep working hard, but also at the same time, like recognize where you are and go out and search for opportunities that will make you happy as not just an athletic trainer, but as a whole person.
Love it. What has been the most influential resource that you found in your career?
So I know everyone says this, but definitely networking.
There's
uh,
probably a reason why a lot of people say it, so there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, exactly. Networking. My mentor, who's like, he doesn't know it anymore, probably because him and I talk like maybe once every couple of years now, but we still talk, right?
Hmm.
Um, but my mentor from Cal State Northridge, he's the reason that I was able to be a grad assistant at ASU. um, and from there, they're also my fellow classmates at CSUN. I worked at Cal State Long Beach, and I got that job through a classmate, to be an athletic trainer there. And then, as I mentioned, my current job I got through other networking, just working with people that were in healthcare but in different capacities. So networking there, getting my current job, or the company that I work for now. So networking is important, really, really important. The other piece is why I'm always like, come to convention. So I'm a key volunteer in the Career Center at NATA every
Hmm.
year. So please come visit me at the Career Center. But again, networking, the way that I was able to get, and key volunteers is different than volunteering like hourly. Key volunteers, you're essentially working with NATA. They pay for the whole convention. They pay for room and board and other things. I
Nice.
think probably okay, edit that out. No, I'm just kidding.
All of a sudden, there's going to be an influx of volunteers.
Right, right. But I got that because I was volunteering at conventions, and then I like had an affinity to the Career Center, so I got to know everyone there, and now like I talk to those people, and they work for membership for NATA, so I was able to network with them and get there. So yeah, networking, mentorship, super super big.
Awesome. As an AT in your role, how do you take care of yourself?
Yeah, so I think working from home is one way I take care of
Fair.
myself. Um, I don't like, and I don't like, people think like, oh, you can clean the house. No, I don't. I take the time to like work out. when I like right now, my 8-month-old, she's with us until we probably won't put her in daycare until she's like 12 to 18 months. But she's with me. And so when I have someone helping here, a nanny, a grandma, whatever, I'll make sure that I work out. I try to like get my nails done and my hair done. That's like my, fun, like true self-care. But I think the working from home, the being able to work out whenever I want. I try to sleep sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't get any sleep. I don't know about you with your 7-month-old, but we're still waking up I'm still waking up every 2.5 hours. So sometimes I try.
I don't talk about our situation, so I'll just say I sympathize with you to a degree.
Yeah, no, I've come to a healthy like okayness with my both of my kids not being sleepers.
Gotcha.
So it's all good. But yeah, so that's what I try to do is get some sleep, exercise, and go on appointments to get my hair and nails done.
There you go. If you could change or eliminate one thing, it could be a modality, a common practice, a mindset within the profession, what would it be?
Yeah, so this one, when I saw this one, I was like, okay, I have to think about this. So I've been like thinking about it, and I'm still like, there's so many things that I would like add and take away.
Sure, sure.
um, so I think there's like an array of things, but honestly, like one of the biggest things, and I mentioned this in what I would like go back and tell my younger self, but again, it's I know that it's athletic training. I know that most folks get into athletic training because we want to work with athletes. Um, but I would challenge that mindset, and I would change the way that our mentors and different people that maybe we interact with present athletic training, because I think that it's so much more than that. And I like one of the reasons that I love listening to your podcast is like hearing what people have to say, like what athletic training means to them, what they've done, all of these things, because it really helps me like solidify this point, because everyone is just so much more than someone who works with athletes. Everyone has so much to bring to the table. And so I think that us changing that small mindset and helping just anybody get into athletic training, I think that would expand the group of people that we get, that would expand those that do come in because of athletics to really understand and work with anybody and everybody. And so they all like, you always have a fallback, you always have a plan, like in case you're, because I'm not saying don't reach for the stars, please do, but there's always opportunities that you, like you said, with where you are, opportunities that we may have not known we're going to like be our like world, become our like love within athletic training. So
Awesome. And you alluded to it. So here's the question. What does being an athletic trainer mean to you?
yeah, so to me it's essentially like small 3 words, or I don't know how many words it is, but helping others, 2 words. Helping others, and that can be in any, like helping others get better, return from an injury, helping others be healthy and stay healthy, helping others reach their educational goals, helping others reach their career goals. So whatever it encompasses, that's what athletic training is to me. Like that's why I got into it. As I changed majors in undergrad, I was like, oh, like I always love to help others. Like this is a really great route to go, because I love athletics and I love to help others. We hear that a
Yep.
lot, but I think helping others in all capacities and all the different ways that we can get them to where they are or where they want to go as a person, not just, an active person or an athlete.
Awesome. You kind of alluded to it before we got into these, but if people wanted to follow you, connect with you, whatever it may be, what's the best way for them to do that? And we'll link all this up in the episode page as well. So
Cool. So Twitter, which is where I do most of my ATing on, it's Ndrumark. N as in Natasha, Drew, Mark as in both of my last names combined. Um, Instagram, I think I've made everything private, but Instagram is Natasha D83. Not to age myself, but I liked it because it rhymed. But also aging myself. Facebook is just Natasha.Drugarov. So my first name dot my maiden last name.
Sure.
And I also have a website, it's just natashadenmark.com. I didn't put that on here, but that's more of like I use that when I apply to different jobs or different like boards or wherever I apply to.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking the time and sharing all of this. And now, knowing for sure you're going to be in Indy and that I'm most definitely going to be there, I will be swinging by the Career Center
Yes,
to
come
say
by.
hi, if not something else. If not somewhere else in the whole place. But
Yeah. And now we're in registration. So like if even if you're just registering, we'll be right there.
there you go. Looking forward to it. Thank you again for taking the time, being flexible and getting this scheduled. I appreciate that. And I can actually say this. Look forward to meeting you here in not too distant future.
Yeah, I look forward to it too. And it was my pleasure and an honor. Thank you so much for reaching out after I reached out. And so thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Athletic Training Chat. Our guest was Dr. Natasha Denmark, who is always focusing on education, both from the JUCO side and through her job. Super interesting on just the different aspects her career has been able to go and the things she's been able to do that aren't necessarily traditional within the athletic training profession. Just by listening, you are supporting us in our Throw a Lifeline program. We get a little bit of revenue from the ads, which we appreciate you listening to, which then we are putting 100% directly into our program to make sure that we're getting these pieces of equipment to the people that need them most. And we want to again thank Mueller Sports Medicine for contributing the kit to go along with all the materials that we are able to get out there. Thank you again for listening. If you want to check out more, go to clinicallypress.org and there will be more information on that, what's all included and other ways to contribute if you're interested. Thanks again for listening.